Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. All right, if you have everybody's attention, please. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us here tonight. Really awesome crowd here, so really excited to have everybody. Yeah, let's get a round of applause going. Cool, and it's not just you guys here tonight. We're streaming this live as well through YouTube and Facebook, so hello to everybody watching out there live tonight. I'm just really excited to be here tonight. I remember sitting in this room over a year, last year, the first time I was here when I first really started diving into blockchain technology and just thinking, oh, it'd be amazing to like hold a really big event like this about blockchain technology. And here I am right now. So really excited about that. I want to introduce Solomon as well. This is my partner and co-founder, BlockApps. We're the ones kind of put this together for you tonight. Thank you. And we couldn't have done it without the help of Rise and our friend James as well. So James is going to come up real quick and tell you guys a little bit more about Rise and what they do.
Thank you, Sean. Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome to Rise. Welcome to Hump Day of FinTech Week. I hope you're enjoying it. My name is James-Lubin. I'm the event manager here at Rise. I want to thank Sean and Solomon for filling out the house tonight. I met them late 2016 when they started off with their Business of Blockchain course. It was only 20 people. Intensive six-hour course they host here at Rise, and now it's grown into I want to say 100 or 110 people event. So that's really good, guys. Well done. I'll give you an introduction to Rise for most of you that don't know what we do. Rise is an open innovation platform for fintech. We were created by Barclays just over a year and a half ago, and we're now open in 7 cities globally. Within each site, we aim to be the hub of fintech within each city. We use a 3-pronged approach. We have our co-working space, just out here, and we have it on the 6th floor also. We have our Barclays FinTech Accelerator. So we're looking towards our next cohort in fall. Applications are open now through the Techstars website. And we also have this amazing event space, which we hire out complimentary. And it's complimentary to the fintech and tech communities. So we're always looking for new and exciting events such as this one. If you have any questions, you can find my colleague Tanya, who will be at the front desk tonight. You can also follow us on Twitter. It's at ThinkRiseNY. And our website is thinkrise.com. Thank you very much, and I look forward to this excellent panel.
Great. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
So before I bring the panelists up, I'd just like to, we had a few like golden tickets hidden in the brochures that you guys got, the guides that you got today. I don't know if anybody noticed, but so there are a couple paper wallets. We got 10 paper wallets hidden in there. So if you haven't flipped through the guide, go ahead and take a look. If you got a paper wallet, oh, I see a winner over here. Is that Gary? Nice. Can you stand up for me just to show everybody what it kind of looks like? Cool, so that's a paper wallet right there. It's got, oh, another winner over here. Cool, there's 10 winners. So I only saw 2 hands. There could be 8 other winners out there. Oh, here we go. Nice, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, 7. All right. Cool, so on those paper wallets, there's actually $5 of Ethereum on there. All right, yeah. Woo. Could turn into 25 overnight. Who knows? That's just a sticker, but you know, that's good too. Those are cool too. Yeah, so if you don't know what to do with the paper wallet, once you get it, you can come talk to Solomon and I afterwards, or you can join us for our class this Saturday in the conference room over there called the Business of Blockchains, and that's like an introductory course. So if you're just getting started with blockchain technology, or you want to learn a little bit more about it, that's what the course is designed to do. It's a full day session, 6 hours. You spend the first half talking about the technology, how exactly it works and what makes it different, and the second half talking about use cases and how it can be applied. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. At BlockApps, our focus is to collaborate within the community, and that's really what the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is all about, is collaboration between enterprises to make blockchain viable on a much bigger scale, and that's what we're working towards. And we work with a lot of companies within the community. So for instance, Etherisk and Uport have come down and done demos at our class before, and this Friday afternoon we'll be doing a workshop with Monax as well, and there's still tickets available for that, so if you want to come, that's Friday afternoon. You can check out our website or Eventbrite for that. And then we're also, we're into giving giveaways like the wallets and the raffle. We're going to do the raffle at the end of the panel session here. But we're also, Solomon and I were talking, and we were feeling pretty generous, so we're going to give away a ticket to our class this Saturday as well, okay? And so this is a contest for everybody watching live out there as well. For anybody who just joined us, we're live here in New York City at Rise for the Enterprise Ethereum talk. And if you want a chance to win a free $600 ticket to our class this Saturday, all you have to do, let me switch the slide here. Yeah, all you got to do is go to this website up here, blockmatics.tech/eguide, okay? And you're going to put your email address in there. That'll enter you for a chance to win a ticket to our class on Saturday. It'll also give you a PDF version of the guide that we handed out here tonight. For those of you watching at home, it's a guide on how to buy, store, and invest cryptocurrency, so you can learn about that. And if you're on the social media, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that, the hashtag for this event is GoEEA. And then this is part of an overall FinTech Week kind of program. So the hashtag for FinTech Week is FinTech Week NYC. You can use that as well. And for those of you guys watching at home, any questions that you have for the panelists, you can send it in on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, with the hashtag GoEEA. And we'll do our best to get as many of those answered during the Q&A section as well. We'll include some from people at home, and we'll give you guys a chance as well. When we're doing that section, we'll have a mic right up here. So if you guys can just line up, or make sure you speak into the mic, because we are recording this. This way people at home can hear you as well. All right, so without further ado, let me start bringing up the panelists here. Chris Dannen, this is going to be our moderator for the evening. He's the co-founder and partner at Iterative Instinct and a private investment fund focused on crypto assets. His new book is called Introducing Ethereum and Solidity, which will be part of the raffle contest that we have later on. And he's also an advisor to BlockMatics. I'm happy to call him a friend and a fellow Estonian e-resident. And I'll let him take it from here.
Just switch mics.
Hey everybody. Oh, that's better. Welcome to Rise. We're here tonight to talk for about 45 minutes about the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and the future of blockchains, what it means to be a member, how standards are developed, all that good stuff. Like I said, we'll talk for 45 minutes, and then we'll take 15 minutes of questions. So why don't we bring up the panelists here? Come on up, guys, and I'll introduce you however you want to, whatever order. So this is Kieren James-Lubin. He's the Chief Product Officer and founder at BlockApps. And next to Kieren, we have Vanessa Grellet. She's the Executive Director at ConsenSys and Enterprise and Social Impact. And next to Vanessa, we have Amber Baldet. She's the blockchain lead for JP Morgan. And down there on the end, we have Allison Paz. She's the Senior FinTech Analyst at BNY Mellon in Corporate Development and Strategy, looking at DLT, Distributed Ledger Technology. And then on the end there, my old friend Preston Byrne. He's the COO and co-founder of Monax, which maintains a Hyperledger client and a smart contracts library. So thanks, guys, for joining us. I guess we can have a seat and get going. So to start, let's just talk about what is the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, and for anybody who's a complete newbie tonight, what is it all about? How did it come together? Whoever would like to take it.
Decentralized.
So I guess emergent leadership.
Emergent leadership. So since Monax is the kind of the problem child of the EEA, I think I'll start. So the EEA was founded, it was led by ConsenSys, who many of you who are based here in New York will know, and a number of other companies in the space, including BlockApps and Nuco and a couple of others. And round about December time, they identified a need for standard setting and leadership in the Ethereum space, in that if you are, if you look at the various competing code bases and code governance and that kind of thing, each code base kind of has an owner or someone who's shepherding it. So if you look at Fabric, that's primarily driven by IBM. If you're looking at Sawtooth, that's primarily driven by Intel. But there are a lot of different Ethereum companies who are doing a lot of different Ethereum things with different implementations. So there's a need to make sure that we can all talk to each other and interact. And so the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance was born out of that. And now it has a bunch of members who are deeply concerned with that particular question.
And who would like to talk about how it came together, and who was there at the beginning?
Sure, I can talk about that a little bit. So there have been a variety of attempts at creating what might be called Enterprise Ethereum for probably the last 2 years, going back to some initial conversations at DevCon 1. But it took a lot of people a lot of time to start smaller experiments, figure out how they felt about things. The community was growing. People were being introduced to each other. And it's a relatively small world. People know each other. And it comes up enough times at enough happy hours of why don't we have something that's Enterprise Ethereum that somebody puts on a conference call. So yeah, ConsenSys had helped kind of bring people together and happened to know who was doing experiments in the space. But what was a little different, I think, about the original formation here was that the people in the room at the beginning weren't there just because they were interested in blockchain and wanted to learn more, but because they already had some sort of active project or contribution to the space. So everyone that was there from very early on knew what, kind of a direction that they wanted to go. And from there, we've made sure to include or invite or ask for more participation from anyone we felt like should be there. And since the EEA launch, there's been a ton more inquiry across the space. So it's really growing across both larger enterprise, but also through the startup and academic space.
And Amber, how many members are there or were there at the outset?
There's 11 launch members that were in the initial press release. There's a somewhat larger group that were in some of the initial conversations but didn't quite cross that line into the initial press release. And now we have a relatively large number of inquiries and applicants that will hopefully have a conversion percentage to membership.
Gotcha, okay. Now, Vanessa, I think a lot of people in this room probably recognize ConsenSys here in New York as being a major Ethereum player. So how did this look from the perspective of ConsenSys? How did things come together?
Well, ConsenSys really wants to build the field and grow the Ethereum community. And
On the other side, I think.
I can take this. ConsenSys is at the heart of building the Ethereum community and bringing together the large enterprises and smaller startups and their clients really is the way to go. If we manage to build this protocol layer that everyone agrees would be something we can build applications on, I think it will be exponential in terms of growth of the Ethereum protocol.
Thanks. So let's learn a little bit more about how the Alliance works. Maybe, Kieren, you can talk a little bit about the technical steering committee and the role it plays.
Certainly, certainly. So BlockApps is a launch member and on the found. Can't hear me? Can you hear me if I hold this closer, or I'll also just take the mic? Okay, so BlockApps is one of the launch members, and we sit on the board of the EEA. I personally sit on the technical steering committee. Everything is kind of flowing from calls, which are now happening weekly, in which we set goals and then see if we're actually going to meet those goals. But the goal output of the technical steering committee, sorry, I believe it's the technical working group now, is a reference specification of the enterprise version of the Ethereum protocol. And one of the key tenets is that it should be as compatible with the public network as possible. So there can be a two-way exchange of R&D resources, ideas, etc. But we found, BlockApps and other companies in the space, that to serve enterprise requirements, we do have to make changes to the core public network protocol. And so the technical working group is attempting to standardize those changes and produce sort of a minimal specification that is as close to the public network as possible, nevertheless allows for enhanced enterprise-focused capabilities.
Gotcha. I'll give this right back to you in a second. So can you describe what the purpose of the technical reference spec is, and is there a reference client, and how is it used?
So in my view anyway, the purpose of the spec is so that independent vendors can come in and implement the spec primarily in an open source basis, but maybe not exclusively. There will be a reference implementation. We're discussing how to resource someone actually building the reference implementation. The EEA membership fees are not the membership fees of some of the other consortia, for instance. So there are technical resources that, it's also a non-commercial entity. So there's technical resources that need to be brought to bear to make the reference implementation happen. And that's sort of just the beginning. From there, there's lots of vendors involved, us, software vendors, Nuco, obviously, Monax. So we will collaborate and compete at the higher in the stack value add layer.
Gotcha, okay. Vanessa, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the foundation, and Kieren mentioned it's not a profit entity.
Sure.
How does it work?
So we came together in about 3 months, the 11 founding members and 30 other entities, to create a foundation. And really, you have a group of doers. So what we really want to do is have a foundation that's member-led and member-driven. So the fees are relatively low, and that's because we want members to contribute their technical expertise and their resources to actually doing things. So people are working on the protocol layer, but also there's an opportunity for companies to create specific groups that are dedicated to vertical or horizontal issues. So whether it be the supply chain, or you want to work on IoT or AI and blockchain, or you want to work on automotive. These groups are being formed because it's what our members need, and they want to be really narrow focused to create applications on top of the protocol layer. So everything is member-led, and the foundation is here to facilitate all those working groups and their outcomes. We'll be publishing on a regular basis the results of those working groups and doing demos, so to show the progress of each group, et cetera. And the board that Amber was mentioning is really the board who sets the strategic direction of the foundation. It doesn't, of the alliance. It doesn't have any administrative requirements, or it's just there to set the strategy, but it's really the members who set the results of what the alliance will be able to produce. Anything to add?
Yeah, do you want to expound, Amber?
On what we're creating, or
maybe on your technical.
sure, my mic's working, so it's fine. Sure. So within the working group area, one that's being formed is around banking, which would make sense. And the goal there isn't to produce specific use cases necessarily. I think we have a lot of forums where that's already happening. But where we're talking about specific requirements which might inform how the protocol itself should be constructed. So whether we're talking about privacy requirements or throughput, or how to meet geographic requirements around data storage. So there's, I would imagine that over time, as there's different requirements from different industries, the goal is not to create one sort of monolithic stack to rule them all, but to allow people to pick and choose across different sort of either modules or flavors or even different stacks, but that speak to each other in a common language, so that if you were to move applications from one to another, you can still get a similar kind of expected result. So it's a little different than the concept of interoperability. We're talking more about sort of compatibility.
Gotcha, thank you. So Allison, why don't we hear from you a little bit? What is the working relationship of members in the Alliance? Coming from a big bank, what's it like from your perspective?
Yeah, so it's certainly been a very collaborative experience, right? Which, having grown up inside two very large institutions, is very different than any other kind of experience. You're working across large enterprises, startups, and universities to achieve results and to achieve open source results. So that is something that has not really been done before, certainly in a consortium model. And driving for results that way is a very different kind of standard.
Why do you think it hasn't been done this way so far, and what are you guys doing differently that is effective?
Looking directly for the best application for each use case is really kind of a very different model than any of the other consortia tend to be looking at.
Okay. And Preston, what's it like from your perspective?
Can I cause trouble? I want to cause trouble. You're all falling asleep. I need to wake you up. So I'm going to cause some trouble. When you're talking about setting a specification or a standard of any kind, there's obviously a ton of politics involved because everyone has their own implementation of that standard. Some people's standard relates more closely, or their interest may relate more closely to the public Ethereum chain. From our perspective, where we're coming from is that, so 3 years ago, I was into Ethereum before it was cool. And is it cool yet? Jury's out. But I was into Ethereum before it was cool. And back then, we saw what everyone was doing, and we liked what they were doing so much that we hostile forked their code and decided to do our own implementation of it, which was with a permissioning module attached. The idea being, okay, if you have Enterprise, because our company was founded by a bunch of lawyers, boring story, very long. But basically we said, look, if you're going to have people talk to a database, you got to know who they are, and you got to make sure that you're doling out your key pairs appropriately to do KYC and all this other sort of stuff. And that the value is in things like the smart contracts, the value is in things like secure natives, the value is in things like not necessarily the chain, but the use of the protocol to automate some type of process. So when we come at this, we tend to look at it and say, look, the VM is what's important to us. It's that you can take Solidity code and you can go run it on 10 different platforms, and as long as you've got the same VM specification, it's going to run the same way, so then you can go compete on whatever your implementation is. However, there are others in the consortium, without naming names, who are more closely married to public chain compatibility, having proof of work available, and we look at that, and our consensus at the moment is Tendermint. Soon it will also be Sawtooth and whatever Fabric is using. But from our perspective, that's just not relevant for enterprise use. So there's a diversity of views on how broad interoperability should be, or how broad compatibility should be, versus on the one hand, it's like total line for line, we should be able to have the same code bases and a reference implementation, which then everybody uses. On the other, they're saying, well, maybe we just have some standards, it has to be able to execute Solidity code in the same way. So there is that fundamental tension. So for the CoinDesk writer in the room, you can say, drama, high drama at the panel event where it's, yeah, I see you. So, but that's the essential tension, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's really fun to have these discussions and arguments, because really anyone who's anyone in Ethereum is playing in the EA.
So since you brought it up, how are those tensions resolved, or how do conflicts get resolved? What's the governance like, and how do things change?
They're not. I mean, not in a bad way. At the moment, I think the consortium it's only, 2 months old, like formally, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So we had to find the right people within our organizations to lead, so I was starting, but I'm completely useless technically, so I quickly got out of the way, and we took one of our engineers, and he now does the EA stuff for us. So it's a question of everyone getting to know each other and having a chit-chat. Other startups that weren't involved in the launch, so Gavin Wood's Parity, and Parity it's called, or ETH Lab over in London, so they're now involved. So it took some time for everyone to get spun up, and I think we'll see something by the end of the year.
So Preston mentioned automation. Kieren, I'm wondering if you would jump in and talk a little bit about specific use cases and what exactly people are automating with stacks like yours.
Yes, I should take that. Yeah, let me think about all the NDAs I'm subject to. So one use case we've announced is a supply chain provenance system with the world's largest mining company, BHP Billiton. Tyler, if you're watching, thank you. And so this is a system that basically allows BHP to, in an automated way, track some of the essential pieces of their core business actually across a network of multiple vendors who serve them. And there's many vendors, and so they have a data integration problem that is actually solved by having a single system of record. And the full sort of provenance of each sample is tracked in a smart contract modeling kind of a state machine with sort of a full built-in audit log. So this is one example which has been announced, and I'm allowed to talk about to some degree. Let me stop there.
So what's the impact for the companies that do the automation, if you don't mind?
I would say potentially tremendous. It's still early in terms of really making use of the technology. Requires some level of organizational, at least buy-in, and sometimes business process re-engineering. And so I would say probably in the broader market, most people are still wading in to a degree rather than throwing their whole, to put it all on the chain. That would be good for us, but it's sort of an iterative adoption path, but substantial, still substantial. This is a really new capability. Actually, being able to share a system of record across corporates is going to be really dramatically different soon.
I can maybe provide a bit of a counterpoint as well from finance. While automation is really interesting for things like supply chain, we're not necessarily looking at automating more and more things. Within finance, we already have been working on straight-through processing initiatives for the last 20, 30 years. We've squeezed a lot out of that. And there's certainly a lot to be done with robotic process automation, which is much more readily understood, software-based, easy to stand up. So when we're looking at blockchain or distributed ledger technology, there's a lot to be said simply for the track and traceability of existing workflows. And we spend so much time in middle office reconciling or tracking down a trade break or saying, do you see what I see? Which one of us is wrong? That if simply that was to be alleviated in some way, that would drastically reduce the cost of operations and speed up time to settlement, not because things are getting, it's not about atomic transactions even to reach settlement, because settlement of the sort of instruments that we're dealing with is more complex than just a simple escrow. But that there are so many intermediary steps to get from point A to point B right now that simply being able to see that end-to-end, know where what you have is in real time, allows us to provide a much better client service experience, which then in turn allows clients to use tools, which again, we would need to develop, provide, productize. So there's plenty of revenue opportunities in this space. It's not just cost reduction, but that allow better collateral management, better liquidity management, overall better portfolio management. So we're really thinking much farther down the line. It's not simply, is this a better database, or does this drive down middle office cost, but how are we really transforming the business?
And Amber, how did JP Morgan come to the conclusion that those promises were real and substantive, and that this was something that the company should spend time on? I mean, certainly there's a lot of technologies in the past that had big promise and it didn't pan out. So how do you evaluate and come to the decision to join the Alliance?
Well, I guess if I have a job next year, it'll be part of the indication. We don't know 100% that this is, the next internet, right? Like nobody has that sort of crystal ball. But when you look at an organization that has 300,000 people in it, if you don't necessarily maybe have one or two people looking at something that might be that transformative, I mean, what is really the risk in that? It's compared to the overall budgets that we have and the amount of energy that it takes to keep these machines churning, or the $600 million that we spend a year on cybersecurity. If you can make any sort of a dent in that, it's worth the very small investments that have been placed so far across the board. I mean, EEA is great, but it's certainly not the only place that we're placing bets in the blockchain ecosystem. And I think that we'll be able to see over the next 3 to 5 years how much that sort of investment should snowball to really transform things.
And Allison, maybe you can speak a little bit to the innovations in the future down the line that may or may not be, and how you see those.
Yeah, so I would say, we're taking kind of a similar perspective, and one that has been a bit more bearish, right, than JP's, but certainly taking various different bets, and our business model being what it is, we're a B2B company, so our transformation timeline is something that extends a bit farther out. We have the luxury of being able to do that. Being the sole clearing broker for the U.S. Fed, we are in, already a utility in many ways. So we're able to transform much more slowly and really take our time to do a slow and very thorough evaluation of every technology standard that comes to market, which is, kind of a great luxury.
And since you focus on this industry in particular as an analyst, how do you see things, how have things developed? How would you characterize the development in the last, let's say, 18 months?
Certainly Moore's Law is alive and well, right? So it's increased, at about the speed that I thought it would over the past 18 months. the point that I think we're starting to reach that liminality point over the next year.
So you expect kind of a slowdown in the enthusiasm, or what do the next few years look like?
Ultimately, I think, we'll get to implementation kind of across large enterprises within the next year. And, we're already seeing a lot of that, but to the point that we won't be having these conversations, which in many ways is a good thing. We'll get to move on to the next thing.
Sure. So Preston, what do some of the needs and requirements look like of organizations that come to you guys and start looking at your client and your contracts?
I mean, it kind of depends. So, like, what do you mean requirements?
Business requirements. Like, what problem are they trying to solve?
Cool. So, how many people are here because they're into cryptocurrency? Show of hands. Okay. How many people are here because they're into enterprise blockchain and not cryptocurrency? Show of hands. Okay. So about, I'd say, well, it's 65, 35. So ish. Anyway, I'm bad at math, but so it's about 20, 15. So anyway, the difference between a cryptocurrency and an enterprise blockchain is that enterprise blockchains, generally speaking, have to play within enterprise rules, which means that if you're giving someone a set of keys and they're talking to your smart contracts up front, you need to know who they are, which means you have to have some way of verifying that that key is held by the person who is broadcasting it, and that they got a hold of it and they were registered with the system in accordance with whatever the KYC AML requirements are. 1, 2, you do not have a concept called a native asset on an enterprise blockchain. So with Bitcoin, they have this idea that the Bitcoin is intrinsic because it has value, because people will pay money for it. And everything that you see on a blockchain is a representation of what is known as a shows in action if it's an asset, meaning it's a thing which is enforced because you go to a court and you serve like a share, a bond, whatever. So those are legally constituted assets. And as a result of that, you need to follow the legal formalities in order to constitute it. So by way of comparison, let us suppose we had a prediction market of sorts that was run in the public Ethereum chain that decided it was going to have an intrinsic token, not naming names. That would be one thing. Not naming names, not saying anything. There are two. Could be one or the other. It's Schrodinger's prediction platform. So if you had that and you're trying to get around the legal rules, that's one thing. If you do this on a permissioned blockchain where everyone's been registered up front and they're coming on board, and you then run it, for example, in a jurisdiction which doesn't allow that, then you might be in a little bit more trouble. So the difference is fundamentally one where the businesses come in and they have this range of requirements. Data protection is one. Are we putting PII on this personally identifiable information on this database? Right to be forgotten is another. I was talking just on a call about that now. It only applies to search engines. It's not relevant. It's a red herring, so don't worry about it. But that's something you consider. About the ability to reverse transactions and when legal settlement occurs. How does that work? So all of these little legal formality tick boxes have to be complied with on the enterprise blockchain. But if you're on public blockchain land, for example, Dogecoin, which everyone knows and loves, that's just not, nobody's thinking about that. But if you go into a business and you say, oh, no, we've got a cryptocurrency, they'll be like, out. And they'll say, go away, we can't use this.
So for anyone here who's representing an organization that's thinking about joining the Alliance, how would one know whether to look into that or to try building on the public chain? What are the distinctions?
I think building on the public chain is a risky endeavor, which must be assessed on its merits. If you know what the public chain does and how it works, and you know what you're doing, fine. If you're into cryptocurrency and that's what you want, then it's going to be very clear that that's what you want. If you're into enterprise blockchain databases, the Alliance has members from a number of different organizations. Monax, obviously, BlockApps, Nuco, ConsenSys, each of which maintain their own blockchain client. JP Morgan with Quorum, not to be forgotten, JP Morgan with Quorum.
Thank you.
So from that perspective, basically, if you join the Alliance, you then have a even apart from emailing, and saying, hey, what's up with your stuff? You join the Alliance, and great, you can now participate on the phone calls where these 3 or 4 different platforms are thrashing out what it means. So you have a very good bit of visibility as to how each one of them interprets what they want Ethereum to be or what it means to them. So it's really millennial friendly that way.
I'd say it's very early in this technology in general, and we're creating this community that really is, you can be in on kind of the ground floor of, imagine being around when the earliest sort of internet protocols were being developed, that, you know, I say that it's a good time to be a blockchain developer. If you're not necessarily wedded to making money off the public chain. Because there are a lot of enterprises that want to build pilots, build use cases, move things to production, integrate with legacy systems. It's a wonderful time to be a technologist and be interested in this sort of technology. So when you're choosing which sort of blockchain technology you want to learn on, a lot of people have drifted towards the Ethereum ecosystem because you can actually get your hands on it. You can see how it's running in the real world. You can see other applications of it. Now, that doesn't necessarily help you understand what the enterprise use cases are, to all of the points that Preston was mentioning earlier. But it certainly gets a foot in the door that if you can say, I've written an end-to-end Solidity application, that certainly is helpful if you're going to be building on some other sort of Ethereum-derived client later. So I think that there's definitely a story to be told around the coming sort of recruiting craze. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Solidity. But whatever, you know, and this, we have the Women in Blockchain group as well, so I pitch this a lot there. But, you know, there's nobody in the space who can say, I've been doing this for 20 years. So this is, you know, and especially women in technology tend to feel that they need to have several letters after their name and multiple certifications before you're allowed to contribute to any sort of community. So this is not like that. You can get up to speed very quickly and be competitive with some of the best people in the space. And because there are so few people, the access to experts is unparalleled. So come out and contribute, and that's really the only way that we're going to be able to turn this thing into something that's really production ready, is through a diversity of ideas and contributions.
Thank you. So we've talked a little bit about the business impact tonight. Vanessa, I'm wondering if you can talk about social impact and how that plays into things.
Oh, sure. The Alliance is not currently focused on social impact, but of course, all the applications that we're developing have huge impact, like identity, anything related to the supply chain, and anything related to financial inclusion. All those applications will be used in, you know, developing countries in order to raise the level of development. So we have other working groups that are dedicated to that, and we might have one at the EEA at some stage. That's it, yes.
Thanks. So we've talked a lot about cost cutting. Maybe someone can speak to how do we monetize some new services or products based on this technology? Do you guys have ideas or thoughts? Or
Cross-selling. Actually, no. So from an identity management perspective, a lot of the interest we get is in integrating legacy data, product, line of business silos. Large enterprises basically do not have a global picture of their customer identities, let alone across corporates, having any kind of sense of one unique person versus lots of different emails and, you know, unique database keys and so on. So that's a big, actually, you know, revenue generating use case. So we hear that one a lot.
Anybody else? Any other examples?
You sell software and services. So either that, or you can just roll a shit coin and sell it on Poloniex. But did I say that out loud? I'm so sorry. So I mean, open source is a really difficult way to make money. I don't recommend it to anyone, even though I do it for a living. But effectively, you know, you have people who have an interest in deploying these systems, and you need to figure out how you can cater to their needs. So I think it's going to be a mix for a long time, probably another year or two. It's going to be a mix of software and services, and then you will start to see specific software-only, services-only business. So if you look at like a stack like IBM, that would be something where you have software and services all bundled into one. At some point, that's going to become very specific, and they will identify where they're best and where their margins are, and then someone else will identify where their margins are, and et cetera, et cetera. But we haven't got to that point yet because 2 years ago, every bank and insurance company had a blockchain guy. Last year, they had a couple of blockchain people. And now, only now are you starting to see, okay, well, we've done 1 or 2 or 3 prototypes and we're going to move that one to production, et cetera. So the market isn't big enough yet for that kind of that kind of division of labor to have taken place, but it will eventually. I think it's fairly typical, though. Just sell software and services that are useful.
Have you guys seen an uptick in hiring in your organizations in blockchain-focused roles, either technical or marketing or anything else?
I mean, my job didn't exist 2 years ago, so sure.
Besides you?
And now we have, a half dozen people that are thinking about blockchain at least some portion of their day.
Yeah, we're up to a distributed model of about 25, which is significantly up from what it was last year.
We're about 180 at ConsenSys. So.
Great, great. So what do you guys recommend for people who are just getting into the Alliance? What's the best way to learn about it?
I would say go on our website. There's an information button, and just put your details, and we'll send out everything to you. It's pretty straightforward. The website will be upgraded next week, so you'll have all the details on the membership levels and how to get there, etc. But if you want to become a member, it's pretty straightforward.
I think there's a workshop or track coming up at ConsenSys, like a mini track. Yeah, so we'll be doing some little lightning panels there as well.
Is it too early to talk about the different member tiers, or can we share some details about that?
No. So we're a foundation. So the way we created the membership structure is really depends on the number of employees that you have. So the very large companies, which have more than 5,000 employees, will pay $25,000 per year. The small startups with less than 50 employees will pay $3,000 per year. And in between, it goes from 10 to 15,000. So we really tried to create this membership schedule based just on the number of employees, and then people can contribute their resources to the project, etc. So you see the levels are fairly low. And we hope that we can accommodate a lot of new members that way, and the right members also.
And there are fees for membership, correct?
Those are the fees that I just said.
Right. And so what do those fees go towards for anybody who's curious and has worked on open source before without paying fees?
So if you're a small company, it's $3,000 per year.
What are we going to use?
What's the money for?
Oh, sorry. It just covers the operating cost of the foundation.
Okay.
So just an executive director and some support. That's really what it does.
Okay. Do you guys all participate in the weekly calls, or how do those work?
Super exciting to talk about conference calls. That's what I do all day. Yeah, depending. I mean, there's board calls, there's the technical steerco calls, there's the other kind of governance calls that we have. So it's kind of a pick your poison of what's interesting or what you've been voluntold you have to dial into. And somehow we're kind of all managing to get it done and filtering together. There are a lot more decisions right now that are board level, simply because it's not yet kind of self-governing. But the goal over time is that board role really kind of falls away once you have an executive director and a self-running steerco. And then it's more of an emergent leadership model within the technical group and the kind of self-forming sub-working groups. So hopefully there will be fewer calls in the future.
I'm trying to get a sense for how much of a time commitment this is for somebody who may be the point person in their company or their organization for the Alliance. Is there, how would you characterize it, any of you?
I think it depends on how the company wants to be involved. There are several ways of being involved. You can participate at the technical protocol layer, if that's what your focus is, and then you might want to dedicate some resources and technical resources to that. If you want to be more on the application layer and lead a group, then that's part of your work, and basically this working group will be integrated in your day-to-day, but also working with other people from the Alliance. If you're more interested in thought leadership or marketing for the group. You can have some resources dedicated to that. It's really up to you as a member to see how much you want to be involved and where your value add is. And what you want to get out of it. So,
but I mean, we're bootstrapping the organization right now, so it's not really representative of what participation by incoming members is going to be necessarily. I also think there's a difference between the sorts of people or people who choose to want to contribute to the reference spec and actual protocol modifications at a very low level versus people who want to be up to speed on what's the latest and greatest and how does this impact, say, another client that you work on during the day, or that want to then build applications on top of that. So it's not that everyone that is involved needs to be a core protocol sort of designer. There's plenty else to be done, and I would expect that we'll see a lot more membership over time that's focused on applications that sit on top of it rather than that sort of engineering.
Thank you. So we're going to open it up for questions now. Does anybody have a question? Right here.
Hey guys, will you just go to the mic though? So
Oh, sure. It's actually right next to you there. Oh.
Yeah, I'll turn it on. Stand up for me. And anybody else who wants to do a question, if you can start lining up behind him so that...
Since Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is focused on private blockchain, and IBM also has like partnered with Hyperledger, so I would like to know like what more is Enterprise Ethereum Alliance looking at, like and like how is it different than Hyperledger?
I mean, I think I'd be pretty good at this because we're members of both.
So are we.
So
are we.
Oh yeah, and so is JPM.
But feel free to answer.
But you didn't put your code base in.
I guess that would be a difference.
No. I mean, but so we joined Hyperledger. Is it funny? The day before Enterprise Ethereum we announced it. It was a total coincidence. And so we joined Hyperledger, and really they're two different efforts. Hyperledger is about administering code for collaborative development. It's not a question of saying we must have a standard for blockchain which does X. Our view of EEA, by contrast, is that that's more about Ethereum and the EVM and deciding what the standard is, and then having competing implementations of the same standard. So they're not really competitive. IBM obviously is using Hyperledger to very great effect to get its platform out there, and people like working with Linux-hosted code. But I don't see them as competitive in any way. It's just one is about building software, and the other one, from our perspective at least, is partially about building software, but more about establishing standards.
Yeah, I mean, they're really complementary efforts. It just so happens that Hyperledger has kind of an umbrella incubation model that crosses several things that are somewhat more disparate between their different stacks that they have. And whereas the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is all kind of cousin code bases that somehow were Ethereum derived. So there have been a variety of efforts over the last, I guess, 2 years at this point to pull some of those Ethereum code bases over. Congratulations. Thank you. There's also licensing issues and other stuff. But I would imagine that over time you're going to see more collaboration. They're certainly not competitive.
Thanks.
So any advice for somebody who may want to be a point person at their company with a specific use case or a vague idea of use cases? So that's part one. Part two is when you do get use cases, are they pushed by companies that have ideas, or are you sort of pulling and trying to get use cases out of companies out there that you think may be profitable or whatever?
You want to talk about use case selection a little bit?
Yeah, so for kind of a couple different ways to do it. For a large enterprise, you have to start ultimately with looking at what does your client or whatever your client base is, what is the largest demand and kind of where the demand curve starts. And that ends up being the best way to get enterprise buy-in and stakeholder buy-in. And then matching that to the right technical stack and whoever your vendors are tend to be the right way to kind of match some of those things. So it depends what your client base is, but actually doing kind of a full analysis and a SWOT analysis of what your business model looks like is a great way to start the whole process.
Cool.
Yep. Did you also ask how we want to like move something through the organization? Was that the first
Yeah,
part of your question?
any idea for like, I know a little bit about blockchain, Bitcoin, but not enough, and I would love to understand from you all, what advice do you have for me in trying to make a case at my company to invest more in investigating?
I mean, is there already an innovation or emerging technologies kind of program that handles other things, or is this totally out of like left field?
I am on the labs team. I'm a product manager, but apart from one other, my good friend who's in UX, there's nobody else that even knows really.
What do you guys do?
We build analytics products for email marketers.
Okay.
And I have use cases in mind, but they're vague and I don't know.
We need analytics
could also
for
just
email
talk
marketers on
individually
blockchain.
after this.
I don't know. Nobody tell them. I mean, I think that support from senior management like can't be overstated. At least at my company, I don't know how it is at all of the others, but we see some organizations that are approaching emerging technologies more from a strategic investment standpoint, and then others that are trying to figure out how they can implement it in-house. So having that kind of decision helps, first of all. And then if you're going to try to eat your own dog food kind of internally, then you need to Allison's point, understand where the business pain points are. It's product design, it's product management. So if you have some sort of strategy group, it usually helps to get them on board so that they understand. And from there, I would say we don't really use that sort of bottom-up approach that you were talking about of let's have somebody come pitch a use case to us and then we decide whether it's good or not, because what are the odds that they're gonna spitball something that's exactly what we need? So maybe at first it was a little more like that, but educating business leaders throughout your organization is really the best way to then move towards someone that says, why don't we do a hackathon, or why don't we like go to some of these meetups, and eventually they will come.
Long, hard slog.
Yeah.
And for us, what really moved the needle was two things. Clients are asking for it, and we're under threat. Those two things, ultimately, at the end of the day, is what's going to do it.
Start with PKI. If you can justify using public-private keys for whatever you're doing, chances are a blockchain will be of some use to you. So start with the crypto and then work your way out, and then you can start doing the process automation type stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
So my question's for Amber, but it's I'd be very interested in hearing everybody's opinion on it, input. So what are the implications for Ethereum, particularly in cross-border M&A transactions, particularly in environments in which there are difficult legal constructs? For instance, India, China, the Middle East and Africa, developing markets, et cetera. Are investment banks right now considering using Ethereum as a basis to create smart contracts to expedite these issues that they've had before?
Sure. So this is a super great time to talk about Quorum, which is the Ethereum variant that JP Morgan open sourced in September of last year. So what we did was took a fork of Ethereum, public Ethereum, but it's intended to run in a permissioned context only. And we removed proof of work from it. It uses a consensus mechanism that is called Quorum Chain. There's also a Raft implementation that's available now. And what we did is we modified it to support privacy through using similar kind of PKI sort of concepts. That's through the privacy engine is called Constellation, slightly different repo. If you're interested, it's all on GitHub. But to your point about are we thinking about tackling some of these use cases, I can't speak specifically about what we're doing in these specific areas, but I can say that I think that using smart contracts or some sort of on-chain logic does allow you to, or hopefully will allow us to, enforce the rules of the road more transparently and more rigorously, and to, in that way, create more kind of fair play amongst markets. So if you can prove over time that using distributed ledger or blockchain-based systems, we're talking about permission ones in this case, Ethereum derived or not, that if that then drives down systemic risk, then you can start transacting in areas and markets where you can't right now. So that's a very kind of long-term view. It's way out there. But when you talk about how do you end up creating product opportunities or revenue from the blockchain, it's certainly not about monetizing an open source protocol. I mean, that's like a rounding error. It's not worth it. That's not our goal in creating this sort of a platform. It's about driving adoption across different industries and use cases so that over time we can kind of patch together a more sort of holistic market that does things like you're talking about, which is services to emerging markets, whether JP Morgan provides them or not, anybody can pick up Quorum and build that sort of functionality. Was that what you
I mean, you talk about monetizing an open source protocol, but
talked about building applications on an open
yeah,
source
that tends to be more of where it's at, and that's what, you know, obviously any investment bank's doing. You know, the monetary system is an open source protocol, so to say.
In what way?
I mean, we all know the rules, we all know how it works, and we can build on it. Ethereum is a new version of this, so to say, in that we all know the rules, we all can build on it. It seems interesting that you're not developing. I'm not quite clear, actually. Are you saying you're not developing open source protocols to be built on Ethereum, or that you are developing those for cross-border transactions?
Quorum is an open source protocol.
Yes.
We're looking at building applications on top of that. Okay. The ones that we have spoken about so far are about inter-branch payments within JP Morgan. That's what's disclosed right now.
Okay, cool.
Hello, thank you for doing this, and congratulations to everybody for being here. You're all very forward-thinking. Seriously, this is like wild stuff. But with respect to, so I'm a corporate lawyer. I do M&A, IP licensing in the healthcare world. And what we're seeing now is an obscene craze of initial coin offerings. It's wild. And what I'd like, just briefly, each one of you could go down the line, I'll be quick. What is currently the best way to go about it in order to capture the public's, not capture, that's a very big term, to have the most trust in the enterprise from the public? You really, because all it is, it's completely unregulated by the SEC and kind of worldwide, and it really depends on literal worldwide public markets trusting what seems to be a potential garage band full of guys to deliver. And what do you guys think is the best way to have that trust, to gain that trust from the public, to essentially raise the most funds as possible to deliver on the project that is supposed to solve the problem that is allegedly needs to be solved?
ICOs are stupid. They're the dumbest fucking idea that's ever been thought of in the world. They take a startup's incentive model and turn it on its head, which is that you're supposed to produce some product, you're supposed to build a business, and then someone's supposed to invest in you once you've demonstrated some proof points. They turn that completely backwards, and anyone who organizes them should be taken out and shot.
Wow, okay, let me just, but I appreciate that, but what about for people who aren't in America, New York City, you know, financial capital of the world, maybe it's London, whatever, but what about a scientist who's in Brazil or Chile or deep in Asia that doesn't necessarily have access to capital markets? And now they could launch to this crowd of what some people may consider dumb money, but it's money nonetheless. And they can get funding for something that is potentially revolutionary, whereas otherwise, you know, a venture capital firm is going to take a meeting with a kid from Asia, or
Jack Ma managed to do it without kissing Mark Andreessen's ass, so can anybody else. ICOs are exploitative, they're abusive. They 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, they end up badly for the people who have invested in them. I see they have no redeeming characteristics whatsoever, and may God have mercy on the souls of those who organize them.
That is an amazing response. We should memorialize that. But can the rest of you guys please comment on it and be as brief as possible? I will sit down. Thank you.
My corporate communications guy is in the back here and not saying anything.
I'll say, I think ICOs are a great tool to leapfrog the traditional VC structures that we see. I think they're really catered to the community, especially in the Ether community. And I think it caters for the support of the community in building those products, which Gnosis just had a very successful ICO a few days ago, and I think it's going to be a model for the future, and we'll see more and more, and the regulation will relax itself or take into account the specific model, and it will grow. It's a global movement. It's not going to stop, and I think it's a wonderful way to get your startup going.
Hi. I might be a bit cynical here, but based on what I heard from the panel, it looks like there's not been much progress on the Ethereum Alliance as yet, especially compared to the progress that's being made on the Ethereum public forum, right? So do you see it as a possibility that the Alliance, falls apart and dies, or do you see some real progress coming out of this Alliance? And what would you characterize as the success for the Alliance?
I mean, it's been like 2 months. Like, what do you want? Like, I mean, I've been in multiple industry consortia. I think it's, I've seen lawyers turn things around in 48 hours. It was spectacular. I don't think that it's moving any slower than anything else. If you want to talk about versus the innovation of the public chain where there is no authorization required to attempt anything, I mean, yeah, we all have governance. We all have lawyers around us, so it's going to be slower.
If you've ever spent any time in a large enterprise, this is always what I use for our model of progress, right? A true enterprise sales cycle is 2 years to 3 years long, and that's the thing to keep in mind. We're now trying to insert a consortium model and a startup model and a developer lifecycle model inside all of that. You have to kind of think in those standards.
Yeah, I work for Morgan Stanley.
But if you think that,
different kind of progress.
But the thing is that we didn't all get together and say, let's whiteboard a new blockchain from scratch. I mean, it's building off of something that's already running in production. So the maturity of the code bases that already exist, if we were to pull in incubation code tomorrow, is considerable compared to everything that's out there in the marketplace right now. So just because we haven't had legal incorporation for a shorter amount of time doesn't necessarily mean that the code isn't mature already.
But what would you consider a success or a milestone from coming out of the Alliance?
We need a reference spec, right?
Yeah.
We've committed to publishing a reference
the
spec.
IP in a week. I've never seen that happen in my entire life, and I was part of the negotiations, and I'm a cantankerous son of a gun. And we still managed to get to agreement on how the IP was going to be doled out. Consortium IP is not easy, so I think it has moved very quickly as far as consortia go. They've done a very good job on getting different companies with different sets of interests, they being ConsenSys, who has been responsible for driving its organization. And they've done a very good job at getting everyone to agree what the rules of the game are, and that's the hardest part of this. And they did it in a month.
Yeah, and it's not an organization of folks who don't know what their vested interest is. So there's a lot of startups participating or technology vendors participating who already have paying clients, who already are down the road into implementations. So it's not quite as much like a blue sky endeavor. So getting people to align is probably a little more difficult, but ultimately, hopefully, makes sense in that there will be more synergy across those companies instead of having everyone operating in completely different vertical stacks that are completely non-interoperable.
Thank you.
I think we just wanted to take a couple questions from online, and we'll do a couple of those.
Sure, these aren't necessarily most serious. So have any of you contacted Vitalik for help, I guess personally?
I mean, he came and hung out with us at like the initial.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're cool. We know Vitalik.
And if anyone can speak to this, who is one of the next big members, or what members can we expect if anyone has a sneak peek? But we can't, right? There's no way.
Can't announce that.
Yeah.
Not serious questions, guys. All right, well, thank you everyone for your time, and we'll be up here for questions after the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, guys, we're going to do the raffle. So if you have a raffle ticket, just stick around for a minute here. Cool, thank you. And just before I pull the raffle, I just want to give some thanks also to my friend Nico over here, Toby, Alex, my sister Katie, Carol. It was a big team effort here today to make this happen, so I really want to appreciate everybody coming out to help us out. It's really a community thing.
Hey,
So, all right, first raffle winner for, we'll offer up digital gold first. Number 359543. 359543. Yeah. So 543, ended in 543. That's the digital gold one right there. Okay, I'll call out the next book as people are looking. Again, yeah. You got a winner? 359543. All right, come on up. We got a digital gold. Let's give it up for this guy right here. Nice. All right. Next up is a book from the man himself, Chris Dannen over here. That's going to be 359358, ending in 358. Oh, winner over here. Nice. All right, and next two are going to be for the workshop this Friday with Monax. Oh, thank you. Yeah. All right. Let's get one there. It's going to be ending in 547. 547. All right, lady in the back, come on up. All right, last one here, guys. Last one for a ticket to Monax this Friday. 505. 505. Got a winner, 505. Looking for 505. Just hang out right here. I'll give you a second. No? Go 5. Is it you? Oh, you can't use it? All right, we'll go for another one. Talk to me after. We'll hook you up with something, okay? All right, we're going to do one more because this guy can't attend. 521. 521. Ending 521. 521. All right, Javier. Nice. Just hang out. I'll hook you up in a second. Thank you, guys. Feel free to grab some drinks and mingle and network.